get a little more analysis on this, we can talk to Mohammad Marandi, who is a professor at Tehran University. Many thanks for speaking to us here on TRT World. Let's continue to talk about this U.S. withdrawal. Clearly, it's good news for Turkey, who's been calling for the U.S. to back out of the north of Syria, where it's been battling with the YPG. How much do you think the decision that was made by Trump has to do with that U.S.-Turkey relationship?
I think at the moment, people here are still waiting to see what will happen because the United States under Trump has already announced that they will withdraw from Syria once before, and that never materialized. So I think the mood is let's wait and see. Obviously, the U.S. position in Syria has always been one, from the Iranian perspective, as a destructive, they had a destructive role from very early on in the conflict in Syria. They were supporting the extremists according to the 2012 Defense Intelligence Agency document. The Americans, their regional allies, especially Saudi Arabia, supported the extremists, and the United States took a willful decision to support these countries in supporting the extremists, according to General Flynn at that time, who was the head of that agency. But I think if the United States pulls out, it would be very good news for Turkey because the United States has been giving the PKK the opportunity to strengthen itself, and it poses a security threat to the Turks. But ultimately, I think the best way forward, if the Americans pull out, and that's a big if still, that Turkey and Syria have to, in some way or form, begin to cooperate, even though the two governments dislike each other. But I think that behind the scenes, there must be a way where the two can come to some sort of arrangement where there is security across the border, and where at some point some form of trade can begin so that people who live inside Turkey and Syria near the border, they can have their lives restored to some sense of normality.
This takes us to another regional player, Iran, who has been working with Turkey and Russia in Syria. But historically, Turkey and Iran haven't necessarily been the greatest bedfellows. With the U.S. out, how do you expect that relationship to move forward? Interestingly, the timing with Rouhani currently in Ankara at the moment, speaking to President Erdogan.
Well, again, if the Americans do actually pull out, it is a very good opportunity for both Iran and Turkey. Both countries, as you rightly point out, had major differences over Syria. But I think that since the coup, or the attempted coup in Turkey, and when the Turks saw the Americans attempting to destabilize the country, and the Saudis and the Emiratis working with the Americans, I think that when the Iranians backed the legitimate Turkish government in confronting this, as well as the situation in Qatar and the murder of Jamal Khashoggi and other events, I think this has drawn the two countries much closer to each other. And now that the fighting is dying down in Syria and Iraq is more stable, both Iran, Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, all these countries together, actually, they need to somehow find a way to work together to rebuild the region's economy. The belief in Tehran has always been that the United States, their role in Syria was from day one destructive, that they wanted to weaken Syria. Their role in Syria is similar to their role in Libya and Yemen. And they simply want a weak region. They want a weak Turkey. They want a weak Iraq. And there's no alternative. There's no way in order that we can rebuild this region except for some sort of convergence between countries in the region. So I think that a lot has changed, and the Iranian-Turkish relationship, even during those years when they had sharp differences over Turkey, they managed to cooperate together in other areas. But I think now the capability for the two countries to work closely together is much greater than before.
Interesting. Mohammad Marandi, professor at Tehran University. Thank you for speaking to us.